Welcome to One Life on Earth. My name is Kevin, and today I'm going to tell you how to climb Mount Rainier from a logistical standpoint, and also from my first-hand account of climbing it myself. And let me start off by saying I am by no means an expert mountain climber, so if something in my story sounds a little bit unsafe or incorrect, make sure to do your own research into the subject and figure out how to do everything the exact right way. I think to start off, I'll just explain the process and what it was like for us climbing the mountain, and then after that I'll get into more detail on each subject. So I had some friends that were living in Seattle at the time, and I had visited them before, and I saw Mount Rainier off in the distance, still like 80 miles away, and that thing looks huge. It's crazy how big it looks because the landscape all around is perfectly flat, and then you have that more than 14,000 foot mountain just sticking up out of flat ground pretty much. So it looks massive. And ever since I saw it, it became really important to me that I climbed it one day. So I went back there again, met up with my friends, and we set out to climb the mountain. So we woke up in Seattle really early in the morning of the day of our climb and then drove out to Mount Rainier. Now, where you're driving specifically is a little area called Paradise. Once you get to this parking lot here, you check in at the Wilderness Information Center, and that's where you set up your permits and fees. Now, the annual climbing fee is something that every single climber needs to have. It's $51 if you're older than 25, and it's $35 per person if you're 25 or younger. And then the climate permit is just something that you need, someone in the climbing party has to sign up for. It's required for climbing and camping, and that is free. We were there pretty late. I think we started around noonish. Maybe even 1. We parked our car here, and then you start walking up this trail. At the beginning, it's like just a paved trail that all the other tourists are also on. And then eventually that turns to gravel, and then eventually that turns to snow. The hike on day 1 is straightforward. You're just going up here to Camp Muir. So that takes like 4 to 6 hours depending on how slow or how fast you want to go. We got to Camp Muir with plenty of daylight left, so we just kind of hung out and cooked some food. One of my friends brought one of those little propane grill things.
Propane and propane accessories.
So we were boiling up some food, and also he was in charge of boiling a bunch of snow that we were going to use as water for the next day. There is no water here, so any water that you need on your hike, you're going to have to either carry in or bring the boiling thing, boil snow, or melt snow into your water bottles and then use like an iodine tablet or something, or some kind of filtration. So at Camp Muir, a couple hours before sunset, we were setting up the tent and we were getting our gear ready for the ascent the next day. I slept for about 45 minutes. I'm a really light sleeper, and sometimes I have difficulty sleeping at like 10,000 feet or whatever. So I didn't really sleep, which was fine because we woke up super early anyway. So when we were there, there's probably like, I don't know, 30 other tents also there that were making the climb in the morning as well. And general consensus is that you start the hike the next day at around midnight or 1 a.m. So everyone in the camp wakes up around midnight or 1 a.m. and that's what we did also. And then we prepared for the ascent at that point. During this time, it's pitch black, obviously, because it's nighttime. The temperature here is still pretty warm, probably like 50 degrees. For reference, I went June 7th. Okay, so what you prepare for here at Camp Muir for the ascent is, so let's start with all the gear you definitely have to have. I had waterproof boots, just regular nice hiking boots that were waterproof. Let me rewind a bit. For the hike up to Camp Muir, you don't use any crampons, you're just walking in your boots. But from Camp Muir and up, that's where you install your crampons and you use them the rest of the hike up, and then you use them on your hike down until you get to Camp Muir, then you take them off again. So you're gonna need waterproof boots, and you're gonna need crampons that fit your style of boot. So these are the crampons that I have, and generally speaking, there are about 3 different variants of crampons. The bottoms of them are all the same thing, but where they differ is the way that they connect to your boots. So if you have regular hiking boots, you're gonna want this style. You can see that the back kind of just loops on, and then the front kind of just loops onto the toe. If you have super professional mountain climbing boots that are like made of plastic, the back and the front here, they snap on in a much more secure and slightly different way. So whatever kind of boots you have, just make sure that you buy the right crampons for that type of boot. If you have regular boots, you're gonna want regular crampons like this. And I'll put a link down below showing all the gear that I used on this hike, including these crampons. All right, so you have waterproof boots, crampons. Next, you're gonna want waterproof pants. I just bought some the day before at REI or something, and I'm really glad I got the cheap ones because the crampons ruined them. They slashed the bottom of the pants, completely destroyed them. So I wouldn't get too expensive of pants. The other thing you want is gaiters. And these are the things that cover your pants and the top of your boots. It keeps snow out and also keeps little rocks out of your boots. And those also got destroyed by the crampons. After that, you're gonna want a climbing harness. Pretty much any harness will work for this. I just had a standard climbing harness. Put that on. Next, jackets. Right down here, it's still pretty warm. You won't really need a jacket right away, but then eventually as you get up into like 13,000 feet, it gets really cold. Probably it gets down to about 10 degrees. So not freezing cold, but pretty cold.
Dude, aren't you cold? No, man, I'm from Wisconsin. From Wisconsin, everybody.
So for that, you're gonna want like one of these really light jackets for warmth, and then maybe something like this, some kind of shell to put over that blocks the wind when you're exposed up on the mountain, and then maybe a hood that can go over your helmet too. That seemed to work well for me. And then the helmet, this is the helmet I had. I did a bunch of research on helmets to try and find the coolest style, and this is the one that I thought was the coolest. I think it looks kind of cool because it has this little brim thing. None of them really look that cool, and obviously that's the most important thing on the mountain, is looking cool. And the way these helmets work is all of the protection is on the top. There's no protection on any of the sides, and that's because its primary job is to protect against falling debris from the top of your head, like ice or big rocks. And I'll get into more about that later. You're also gonna want a headlamp because your entire ascent, day 2, is in the dark. So you definitely need a headlamp. This new one that I got is waterproof, so I'm gonna be using this from now on. Gloves, I just used regular winter gloves, like the same ones that I use for snowboarding. Those worked fine. Sunglasses, the daytime, the snow and the sun reflect a lot and it gets super bright, so you might want sunglasses. And then the other important thing is an ice axe. I opted for like the longest one available. It comes in different lengths, basically from like this size down to this size. And the more expensive you go, basically the lighter it is. So I went with the longest one because I like kind of using it as a cane a little bit sometimes. One of the things this is for is basically you hold onto it all the time like this. And then if you trip and slide off the edge of the mountain, more or less you're gonna like dive on top of it and stop yourself from sliding by stabbing the ice axe into the snow. And then the thing you're gonna need as a group is a big long rope, like a climbing rope, and then you all tie a knot every like 15 feet or so, and then take a carabiner and attach your harness to the knot in the rope. So you'll have like 4 people or 5 people attached to one rope. Kind of the reason for that is if someone falls into a crevice, the other people can stop them from falling, or if they fall off the side of the mountain, the other people can stop them from falling and save them. On your hike up to Camp Muir, you're gonna need a big backpack to carry all this junk, and your tent and your food and your water and everything, and your sleeping bag and your sleeping mat. So you're gonna need a pretty big backpack. This is the one that I used. It's 65 liters. And I think there's a new model out of this one. So let's keep moving. From Camp Muir, you have all your gear and stuff on, and then you start walking north up the mountain. Right away from Camp Muir, we got a little bit off track, but then we eventually found the trail again. And here on Google Maps, you can even see how there's kind of like 2 trails and stuff. And the trail isn't really marked by much at all, but there are the footprints of everyone who went the day before. So if it does storm or something, these might disappear, but in general for us, there was a bunch of footprints everywhere, so we basically knew where to go based off of that. Also at nighttime, you can see people way off in the distance with their headlamps on and shining around, so you kind of know where you're going based off of that too. So you're walking across snow here, pretty easy snow, and then right away you get to like this rock cliff thing that you have to climb. Now walking with crampons across rock is kind of weird. It sounds really bad in your ears and it feels weird. All on boulders and rocks, you're climbing around on that, some more rocks and boulders. Then that turns into snow again eventually. And then up around this part, you actually have to physically cross some crevices, and there are already ladders installed there, so you basically just walk across the ladder, but it's fun. Keep walking up the snow and ice, up the glacier. Then you get into more rock, climbing up the rock, zigzagging back and forth through the snow. And then up here around 13,000 feet, this is when it starts to get really cold. It's about 10 degrees. The sun hasn't come up yet. It's still pretty dark. This is the coldest point in the mountain. And this is also going to be the most sketchy point in the mountain, the most unsafe place during your trek up to the top. Right across here, you have to cross this gully type valley thing, and it's just a trail across, but the trail is only this wide. So try not to trip, because if you trip to your left, you only have about 10 seconds to use your ice axe and save yourself from sliding. Otherwise, you're gonna slide straight off a cliff, and this cliff is about 5,000 feet high. So you do not want to fall off this mountain right here. When you're there, you're gonna know that you're there. Pay extra close attention to what you're doing. Watch your feet walk across and make sure you don't slip, because the last thing you want to do is also pull the rest of your rope crew down with you. Once you're across that, then you're going basically straight up the mountain, up the side, zigzagging back and forth. It's pretty steep. At this point, the sun starts to come up and you're almost at the summit. A little while longer, you get to the very top of this crater thing. And then the real highest point of the mountain is this side of the crater here. So you walk across the crater and you get to the very top over on this side. This is where you take all your super epic hero poses. Congratulations, you made it to the top of one of the coolest mountains in America. Once you're up here and the sun is out, everything starts to get warmer. We hung out up on top for like an hour and then we decided to go down. From there, everything is easier because you're going down in elevation. So the air is getting thicker. The temperature is getting warmer. Almost the entire way down, we were just wearing our t-shirts because it was so warm. Didn't even need a jacket anymore. I took off my gloves. Once you get back to the rocky cliff area, this is probably one of the actual most dangerous places of the mountain, not because of the footing or because of sliding off, but because of rock falls from above. People above you are like 400 feet above you on the trail, and not really through any fault of their own, they'll accidentally kick rocks off, and these rocks plummet down exactly onto the trail below. And we were walking on this trail and we heard someone shout rock, and we were all looking up the whole time. Make sure you're looking up above you the whole time, keeping an eye on falling rocks, because a rock bigger than a bowling ball fell about 400 feet down and smashed onto the trail right in front of us. Thankfully, we were watching for it, so we saw it coming the whole time, but that helmet is not gonna save you from something like that, so make sure you keep an eye out when you're on that part of the trail. You'll know you're there when you get there. Getting down back to Camp Muir, our tent is still there. We pack all of our stuff up, take all of our gear off, put our crampons away, put our ropes away, and then you're just sloshing back down all the way back to the car, back to the parking lot. Overall, super fun, very difficult hike, but well worth it for the views and the memories that you make. Let's get into some more detail about this information. All right, for route information, day 1 is the Paradise parking lot to the John Muir camp. You don't need crampons for this part of the hike. Day number 2, you wake up in your tent. This is where you put all your gear on, and then you climb to the summit. And the same day, obviously, you climb back down to the John Muir camp and then back down to the parking lot the same day. All in all, this is gonna take about 24 hours. So bring as much food as you need, food and water that you need for about 24 hours. All right, elevation gain and hike structure. The parking lot to Camp Muir is about 5,400 feet. This part of the trek will take about 4 to 7 hours depending on your pace. And then from Camp Muir to the summit is roughly 4,400 feet. You're going from 10,000 feet to 14,400 roughly. Temperatures on the mountain, like I said, the beginning of the hike, 90 degrees, super hot. Camp Muir, still very warm. As you get higher and higher into the mountain, it starts to get pretty cold. Gets down to about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And then from that point on, it just warms up the rest of the day. There are the 2 fees and permits that you need. The annual climbing fee of $51 or $35 per person, depending on your age. You need to sign up for a climbing permit. This is 1 per party, and this is free. The gear I pretty much already went over. You need a large backpack, a tent, a sleeping pad, a sleeping bag, boots, crampons, ice axe, waterproof pants, gaiters, a light warm jacket, a shell type jacket with hood, water, food, sunglasses, watch. I actually have a solar powered altitude watch that I just lost. I'm thinking about getting a new one if I can't find it. I'll put a link down below for that too. It's really cool knowing exactly what altitude you're at all the time, and also having like a compass for emergencies. You need your helmet and gloves. And then for athleticism and strength, all of us are pretty fit individuals with a lot of hiking experience. I would say if you're looking for workouts to do to prepare, squats, deadlifts, and core are going to be your most important thing. All in all, just have some fun, guys, because Mount Rainier is one of the coolest things you can do in the continental US. Not very many people at all do it. The average person certainly doesn't. So I think it's pretty cool that you guys are trying to do it. Ask your questions in the comments below, because I'm sure I forgot a million different things. And until next time, I will see you guys later.